Hey everybody, me Muda. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I don't think I can steal a car today, okay? At least I have tried. Now my extent of stealing motor vehicles is pretty much in games like Grand Theft Auto, really any open world title, where the most extent you have to do is go up, tap the Y button, and boom, you're already sitting in the driver's seat. Maybe you might have to hotwire the car a little bit, but I would say if stealing cars was this easy, ladies and gentlemen, I think more people would be doing it. Now, this is a pretty important video for me, simply because I'm going to be completely real with you here. Car theft is a real big problem in Canada, okay? So because there's a lot of car thefts, and there's a lot of people that, break their cars intentionally, like mob style, and then get, the insurance companies to pay for a brand new vehicle, everyone's premiums goes through the roofs, okay? It's really a disgusting industry. I hate insurance without a shadow of a doubt. I have a fucking fender bender, and you know what they do? They ask me for everything. We need your blood type. We need your fucking STD reports. We need like 65 high resolution 8K photos of the actual act. Go fuck yourself, okay? All right? I know it's State Farm. I ain't got a friend there. I don't know if State Farm is an insurance agency. I just like their slogan. But anyways, all that yapping aside, this is something called a Flipper Zero. Now, you probably have seen me make a video on this like 2 years ago, where I actually talked about how dangerous could this device be. And I actually walked you through all of the wild misinformation that existed. Now, at the time, a lot of people said that this was a tool that would be used by car thieves. You could use this device to unlock or lock a vehicle. And it really wasn't that simple. Now, ironically, at the time, the most you could do with this, at least when it came to some goofy party trick, was probably go and fire up and open a Tesla charge port, which usually, let's be honest, mostly worked on I would believe, universal frequency. Like if you have one of those Tesla home chargers or you went to a supercharger, you press a little button on the little charge thing, it would open your vehicle's charge port. So I was assuming that's kind of how it worked. But when it came to actually stealing a Tesla, you mean getting into the car and driving off, wasn't really that easy, okay? Modern vehicles like a Tesla, if I can just find my fob really quickly. A Tesla key card fob looks a lot like this, okay? You just put this in the middle of your console and you can drive your vehicle, okay? So, compared to other cars that usually have key fobs like this Ford, when it comes to these vehicles, even this isn't that simple to hack. Using the Flipper Zero, you can capture the codes that these that these fobs emit. So if you're locking or unlocking the car, you can capture them on the Flipper Zero. And because you can capture them, you could, I guess in certain models, replay that code back and unlock a vehicle once, usually. But even then, when it came to that case, there's so many protections for a lot of cars when they use this kind of technology nowadays, especially modern vehicles, that using a Flipper Zero isn't exactly the end-all be-all. So anyways, to show you exactly how these fobs work, right, these little mobilizers. Now, if you have the Flipper Zero, apparently, according to this dark web firmware, the most you can do is actually unlock and lock a car, okay? Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the thing about this is if that's all you can do, most thieves probably want to start the vehicle, and that's when you need one of these. Now, without a key that is paired to the car here, usually getting past the immobilizer is the issue. See, if I decide to, chuck this key out of the door, so see that? That's the key sitting out there. Now, of course, if I decide to get back in the vehicle now, one thing that you will notice is it will not start. So let me do a little quick neutral check just to make sure this thing doesn't just immediately run off. And of course, keep the e-brake up, pull down the clutch, hit start, and whoa, no key detected. Even though that key is literally just outside the door. Now give me a second, I'll grab the key again. Now as long as the key is actually present, do a quick little neutral check once again, hit that clutch, hit that start, and there you go. The vehicle actually functions now that it has a key. Now, if I take this key and just move it a little bit outside, just chuck it out again, you can see that I'm actually driving. Yes, it'll say no key detected, but what does a car care? So, of course, now that we're safely parked back home, the thing about this is obviously this still doesn't have a key inside it. I have no key fob. The Flipper Zero is just vibing, doing nothing. But again, if let's say that you were a car thief, you could get away and probably start it once and make it all the way to the end. Now, thankfully, a lot of people I know don't know how to drive stick, so if you do happen to stall this in the middle of your thieving journey and you don't have access to the key fob, then you are royally fucked. At least I think so. Actually, wait, I don't think they're screwed. It said restart now without a fob? No way, dude. Hold on. Well, I was wrong, actually. If you just start it once, even if you don't have a key fob inside, you can just play around with this car. God damn it. So anyways, for the last few days, I noticed that there was a lot of shit coming out from like the big news organizations, and even family members hit me up. They're like, whoa, that Flipper Zero you showed us? Can you just steal any car with it? So apparently there's this dark web firmware bypassing that rolling code security on major vehicles, so potentially putting millions of users at a risk of theft. Demonstrations reveal that firmware set to be circulating on that dark web. Okay, the spooky dark web, okay? Like let's kind of start demystifying a little bit. So I went to the old dark web, and unfortunately for people watching, the car thievers in the audience, I could not find a forum, a site that sold this stuff legitimately. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that it's not easily sitting around on the dark web. However, I did end up finding a website of a group of people who were selling an actual hacking tool right here. Now, this isn't on the dark web. This is actually on the clear web. And no, I'm not going to give you the URL. I'm not going to spread this information. So this is a Flipper Zero custom firmware. Finally, a custom firmware that can handle many garage remotes. So the the little remote that opens your garage door, I guess, which can be pretty bad. Plus, it can handle a lot of car remotes. Following cars are known to be working with this Flipper Zero firmware. So for instance, the cars inside here come from Kia, which if you remember a while back, I made a video on the Kia boys, who were like a group of people that apparently opened the fucking wheel well of a Kia, stuck a USB drive into it, and just started the car and drove off. Kia's famously, I guess, had some of the worst, if they didn't even have an immobilizer, they just had systems that were able to be, I guess, bypassed and used and abused. Now, of course, you've got Hyundai, you've got Subaru, and actually, when we look closer into these hacks, a lot of these cars are actually from the Asian variety, so got to remember that a little bit. Now, of course, you've also got Fiat, Chrysler, Jeep, I guess a lot of these people, possible up to 2012. Then, of course, for Ford, you've got, Explorers, you've got Kugas, you've got Escorts, you've got Mustangs, you've got F-150s, all the way to the 450, and they say models up to 2018. The Honda is in development, Mitsubishi's, and Suzuki's. Now, according to these hacker groups out over here, they wanted to say that the price for such a beautiful tool is $2,000 USD. Now, if you're an enterprising car thief, that might be a pretty good value. But again, I would assume that this might just be a scam headed to your direction. So with added support by Peugeot, Citroën, and Volkswagen, I don't even think we have any of those vehicles. I haven't really seen a Citroën in Canada. But I believe I've seen one in like Australia. Anyways, though, you can pay with Bitcoin, PayPal, whatever. It includes 2 licenses for 2 Flipper Zeros, so you can scan on 2 frequencies and modulations at the same time. So yeah, these people are selling what is a car theft tool for like $2,000. Now, I saw some of the footage from like one of the YouTube channels that was linked here. I don't know if they're entirely connected, but this is apparently how this hack sort of works. So for instance, they brought out the car key fob, and I guess they have the lock-unlock buttons. So look carefully at the actual Flipper Zero. It's supposed to capture this information. So as they hit those buttons, the Flipper Zero is adding the unlock and lock commands. So now when they actually want to implement this, they can unlock this vehicle by sending this command out and open the car. Now, a lot of this stuff seems scary, Moody. You just showed me a guy breaking into a dude's car with a goddamn Flipper Zero. But this is where I want to demystify a little bit. If you think they can start your car, that's where the story changes a little bit. See, the fundamental thing with, stealing a vehicle is you got to be able to start the fucking engine. And it doesn't seem like the engine can actually be started. So one thing that I want to kind of cover is obviously this was a device that Canada wanted to ban. They were thinking of banning it. And I believe the US actually held a whole bunch of these because they were like, wait, these are used by the lay spooky hacker, if you will. And then eventually they ended up getting fucking released and people are buying and playing around with them. Arguably, the more scarier thing that you can do with this, actually what should be federally illegal, is like modify, if you had all the equipment, like gas station signs, like I saw that. People are fucking around with like billboards and shit. But when it came to car theft, it wasn't that easy. The equivalent of Canada banning this device is kind of like banning a lock-picking set because I guess criminals can use something like that, you know? It's like banning a fucking crowbar because people can like stick it between your door and break into your house. It's like banning any tool, right? It's kind of like banning guns in a way too. That's a bit of an extreme example, but you get the idea, right? Banning the tool isn't necessarily a great solution when you should be just policing a lot more efficiently, right? I believe the Canadian police can stop car thefts. I personally don't think they even give a shit about it. Okay, that's where I stand. Now to go back to that firmware that was being talked about with the goddamn like Flipper Zero on the dark web, a lot of this stuff actually existed literally all the way back since like 2006. So for anybody that doesn't have any idea, systems with cars, especially older vehicles, when they had to deal with like these key fobs, use something known as key lock. Now, what is key lock, you might be wondering? Key lock is effectively an access system that uses rolling codes, or hopping codes as some would call it. And again, according to the people over at Flipper Zero, the idea is every transmission uses a unique signal, encrypted with a 64-bit manufacturer key. So those keys that you get, usually when you buy a car, they give you like 2 key fobs. These keys are tied specifically to your vehicle, right? And every time you send a function out from the key, it switches to a new code over and over and over again. So it's not using the same code, and the car and the key work together and basically share information that only they know. Now, the way that actual car thefts kind of happen is like this, okay? So for instance, you can actually see in this clip 2 scumbags are stealing a vehicle. Now this car is parked very closely to the front door, okay? I wouldn't park like that, but apparently it is. Now this guy is holding what appears to be an antenna and a keyless repeater. So the way that this works is usually when people come inside their homes, they probably take their car keys, they put them, probably on a table next to the front door. Now I've started like taking my key and putting it like up here, or I've probably thrown it into like a little Faraday cage, something that keeps the signals locked inside. Not always efficient, but because of scumbags like this, they use these antennas to basically keep it to the front door, scan for your like actual like key, right? Like some guy is near the car, they send a command, that repeater grabs an actual like signal from your key and relays it over to the car. So then the car unlocks, and then they're able to actually start the car, and as long as that car is started, they can just drive it at least one time from like, your home all the way to like, whatever chop shop they have. And these tools are specifically built for car theft. It's not as simple as using this, going near any vehicle and getting inside. The most you're able to do is unlock and lock the key. You still need a connection between a key fob to bypass the engine control unit's immobilizer. So if you sit inside a car and like you just chuck your car key a little bit outside the front door or like far away from your car and you hit the start engine button, the car won't run because the vehicle is looking for the actual key. And I guess some keys probably use like a time sensitivity method where like they just check the signal strength. So for instance, if the signal is not strong, but let's say it's receiving like a start command, and it'll say, why is the signal so weak? I mean, the key should technically be in the car. The signal should be strong as fuck. Why am I getting a poor man 1-bar connection when I should be getting a rich man 4-bar connection? Well, the car will probably say, this is a little sussy-wussy to me, not gonna go down that way. But let's say you sit in the car and you actually start the vehicle with a valid key, the immobilizer is then, given its satisfaction, and you can start the car and do whatever you need to. Now, a lot of the people that sell this kind of stuff, it's not even just the dark web. There have been channels that have been removed from YouTube because they violated the community guidelines. Obviously, you can't just be giving people instructions on how to steal a car. You can't be selling that software blatantly for somebody to buy. So it's not just the dark web this kind of stuff is sitting on. There's plenty of people that are designing these tools and then also putting in shitty DRM because they don't want people stealing their tools that are used to steal cars. I mean, how fucking ironic is that? I feel like the answer to all of this is mostly just, listen, if you're the kind of guy that literally is like worried about your vehicle getting stolen by a Flipper Zero, you might want to consider your car first. Maybe you should be talking to your car manufacturer and asking them why their security is so ass that you actually can hack it as easily with this Flipper Zero. Not to say that this device, can't be used for a lot of legitimate hacking reasons. It absolutely can be. But the way the media has portrayed this as like a fucking kill switch for like vehicles is just absolutely mind-boggling, okay? There's a very distinct lack of care put into actually researching this tool as opposed to just demonizing it. And I think honestly at this point, like governments, law enforcement agencies just need something to pin the blame, before people start really looking closely at the actual lack of enforcement from them. And of course, the lack of real care put into vehicle security that all manufacturers should do. Now look, at the end of the day, the point of this video was to kind of demystify something that family asked me about, stuff I've been seeing all over on the news. And ultimately, look, I had one of these devices. I wanted to have a fun time, show you some cool stuff. But I wanted to ultimately demystify a lot of the misinformation out there. So again, this can be used in some cases to lock a vehicle. But when it comes to starting the car and running away with it, a lot of thieves are using much more advanced, much more, focused tools than just something like this. So now you know, in most cases, how cars are stolen, especially in some cases, modern ones. So, keep your key fobs away from, shitty antennas, install some cameras around your house. That said, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.